This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from HOFAS and Heavenbreaker with mentions of ACOMAF, Shadowhunters, Manacled, and Throne of Glass. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are celebrating us because it is our birthday. It is our anniversary. It is all things ACOFAE. And aren't we so special to have been doing this for so long, Jessica Marie?
We're so fortunate and we're grateful for all of the things. But I always love mentioning that we've been doing this since 2020. We have, and that actually is going to play into part of our episodes because I'm very proud of us. And I think, we've said it with other people, but we have to be our own biggest cheerleaders. And we have use this as a platform to grow a community, to find new book recs, find things that we love, find other people who want to discuss the same things we do. And we've also used it to help us get through some really difficult times for both of us. And even with those times, we're but full send, we're still recording on, whatever day we're recording, right? That becomes the highlight of our week, no matter what we have going on. So, it goes a testament to you. It goes to a testament to our, editor and producer who is currently traveling for work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, editor Sam. We really couldn't do it without you. And, we're celebrating you as always, as much as we are the podcast. You are part of the podcast and it wouldn't be possible with it. So here we are going into our 5th year. Happy birthday, ACOFAE.
Happy birthday, ACOFAE. Now, Jessica Marie, why is our birthday episode different from any of our other episodes?
Well, what's fun with our birthday episode is we have decided to take on kind of an angle that we're educating ourselves. We typically, the restrictions we've put into place for ourselves for our birthday episode is we each pick an episode that a book, an episode, a movie, something that we've covered within the last year. So from January 2024 till now, and we're recording December 2024. And we kind of go back, reflect, have we had growth since that episode? What other thoughts might have come to mind? And that's what we're doing this year. And per usual, we actually haven't told each other what we're actually going to find out now. We tell each other what time of year, only to see, not necessarily oh my gosh, is there going to be crossover? Because we were wondering that earlier. We were what if we picked the same month? And then we were that would be really fun to kind of explore that together. That is not what happened this year. And nor do we go on to our months. I picked an episode from February and there's I'm going to have a lead up into that. And Laura, you picked something from May, I think, right? Yes. And, it took a lot of willpower to not go to May and be which episodes are these? And Laura, I know you told me before, you were I did not even, once I knew you weren't by my month, I didn't even wonder.
Yeah, as soon as I knew that we were not going to overlap at all, I was I just want to be surprised, which is unusual. I hate surprises, but from you, I love surprises. So hit me with it. Surprise me. What do you have?
Okay, I'm going to have this huge lead up, right? Okay. I'm going to tell you
Build it for me. Build it up.
Well, okay, now there's too much pressure. No, it's not that big. Actually, no. But I'll tell you the episode that I was initially toying with, and then how I diverted from that. I was going to revisit HOFAS. I know, shocker, controversial. Well, I know. And for a couple of reasons, I straight against that. Partly because people have openly, this is the first time in the book community, I think we've shared in our initial reactions episode, people were very vocal about not loving it so much the way they did HOSAB. And that's so different from us personally, because when we've shared some of our not so favorable, in line with the masses thoughts and opinions, they are not always received well. So to see that type of reaction for HOFAS for a variety of reasons was really, really interesting. But like we both said in our initial reactions episode, we had a completely different experience. We did not have certain expectations put there. We had not gone about making this like the end all be all. I mean, this is coming from somebody who, you know, we did have some background information prior to the release. We did know some of the depths of these characters and where are the storylines. I personally really enjoyed HOFAS for the Rune Danon and the Lydia of it all. And I do like Bryce and of course, some of the other spoilers that are out there, and I won't necessarily leave them here. But we enjoyed it more than a wider group because we went in with it like, well, let's just vibe. And even at the end of the book, although I had a very visceral reaction, I didn't necessarily love the ending, giving some distance. It was in line with the character, and I am not the character as much as I like to think. So, but all of that being said, we have had our own conversations at the end of, since HOFAS, within the last couple weeks, about, oh my gosh, what if this was the ending? Like, created our own fanfic in conversation in a way that could widen up the world. And with that being said, it brought me back to conversations we have had about fanfics coming full circle. Do we have a right to put those expectations on the author if something doesn't come out the way we want? But the underlying current of the fanfic is bringing us joy and bringing happiness, which is something that we've been revisiting a lot on the podcast this year. And which is why the episode I chose is our book Hangovers episode. And ACOMAF, well, specifically Reese's point of view, and how ACOMAF was really the book that started it all for us to really just dive in and talk about books more. So there is the long and the short of how I picked the episode I wanted to revisit, which is our book Hangovers episode.
That is very surprising. That is not where I thought you were going to take that at all. And
where did you think I was going to take it?
I don't know because as we all know, am not the smartest person. So I don't remember
Stop putting yourself down.
I don't know. It was in February. So it's like, I don't know. It could be anything. You could have chosen anything. It really
could have been any. I honestly thought it was January episodes because I was like, I'm definitely thinking. And then I looked back and I was like, that was not January.
That's so amazing too. And this is also on the heels of, not to like insert myself into your section, but I saw that Alchemised is like in like final edits. Like Alchemised, the going to be published version of Manacled that we all know and love is like ready and like done. So that conversation, again, very special. Jess, so did you go back and revisit that fan fiction, or did we just sit with our episode and our feelings?
I didn't re-listen to our episode, but I did go back to the fan fiction, and I think it's also been a really emotional week. I had like fantasy music playing. I have a lot going on personally, and I was like, there were certain moments where like the like adventure fantasy epic instrument classical music is playing, and it would elevate the whole Reese POV experience, and I'm like finding myself tearing up because it was just revisiting the joy that comes with fanfics. And it also felt like we're still all chasing this high, right? I feel like we read, we look for something to fill a void and chase the high that certain books have given us. And this year felt very much we were in book hangovers. We were in book slumps. We would think we would get out of the book slump, and then we would think we were out of it, but then it fell flat. And not to say that there weren't enjoyable reads this year, but there's something about revisiting worlds that we love and familiarity that I think we've discussed, or we will be discussing in another Shadowhunters episode that we have coming out about revisiting old friends, revisiting things that are familiar in the fanfics. I mean, even when we covered the Love Hypothesis, that book is based off of a very strong fandom and passionate shippers that love this thing that they created. And whereas like Reese's point of view isn't necessarily a ship, it is canon. It is the familiar, and it is writing something that helps make it feel kind of whole, which all to say is like where I was going to go with HOFAS. I can sometimes see with our personal one that we were discussing, we're like, oh, it would have been so good if X, Y, and Z happened. Where you're like, I think I can see it a little bit. Are we as readers in the right to not like an author for not going the way we would create it? No, but that doesn't mean we can't find joy in that.
Did you have like new feelings revisiting this fan fiction, or were you just like, I need this comfort, I need this warm blanket?
I need this comfort, I need this warm blanket, with the addition that I won't put it point blank out there, but if you've read the whole Sarah J. Maas universe, there's going on socials, somebody said to look up the word resand in Norwegian.
Choice in Norwegian.
Choice in Norwegian. That's what it was. Looking up the English word choice in Norwegian, and you will find something. Only do it if you are fine with spoilers or you've read the whole SJM universe. Even with that, I was like, can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And that's also really controversial for a lot of people who are like, Reese this, Reese that. I mean, okay. There are people out there that are worse. I don't know. Maybe we're like Feyre and we have rose-colored glasses when it comes to him.
I think you're making really fantastic points with this. There is something, especially too, because let's put this in the context of where we are. We're in the middle of the holiday season. We are stressed. Our cortisone levels are through the roof. We aren't sleeping. Everything is awful. Really though, everything is awful. And we are struggling to find the joy, right? Like Wicked can take us only so far now. So it is important to identify the things that bring us joy no matter what. And that story brings joy no matter what. Here's my question for you, Jessica Marie. Where do you feel that Reese's POV, this fanfiction that we are talking about, where do you feel that fits into the conversation of, do we need it? Did anyone ask for it? Like, why do we have this?
It's interesting because it came out, because we know when it was published. It came out after ACOMAF, but before ACOWAR. And I can see this having been also released after ACOWAR. Granted, the storyline would have obviously changed a lot with like key characters like Moore and Az and all of that. But the Reese that we know still stays the same. And it would have been chasing that, especially when it was after the trilogy, when we knew we were only getting a trilogy, when it was only the 3. Then we got lucky with the novella with ACOFAS. And then obviously it expanded into what it is with the new contract. But yeah, again, we are the audience, right? Because to go to what you're saying, like who are you feeding? Who is the demographic? Who wants more? We want more. And I think also because it aligns, like the way it's written, it aligns with the characters. at no point, it feels like another canon fanfic. The way we feel that Manacled is just, even though it's an alternate and like an alternate universe, it also still feels very, where Deathly Hallows end and this one and Manacled begins. That's where I feel like you could have inserted this. And also, like, what we've been talking about was like the male POV. Who wants it? Does it matter? But it matters to us when it comes to him. So, like, maybe that's the conversation. Like, there is an audience for, I guess, the people who are writing it, and the fans that they're all being written for. We're just not aligned with a lot of those audiences. I don't know.
And that's a good point too, that there is, though, why we always kind of mention community and why community is so important. There is a divide in the community, and the community is not this like homogeneous, like beautiful, harmonious thing. It is very divided and into like little subsections, right? Like, we're all on Reddit. Like, there's things going on, and sometimes those fandoms overlap well, and sometimes there are some issues. But going to what you're saying, that this specific Rhysand POV fanfiction filled a gap in between when books were not out. But now, having the full story, it still does have a place in the series, even though it isn't like official canon. It is like our heart canon, our head canon, right? I think then that it is important to shout out fanfiction writers, important to shout out AO3, Wattpad, all of it, fanfiction.net, throw it back. I think that they do the work that the rest of us can't do in filling gaps in the story. And fanfiction allows us to not end up hating the author for choosing an ending that blows ass, because we can change it.
Well, now I'm thinking about just like Dramione, right? Like, just Dramione, when you're talking about authors that suck, how you get to rewrite and take control of something that you do love, and you don't want to end it on a hateful note.
Yeah, and you don't end it on a hateful note. And you don't keep supporting a hateful person. Case in point, the new Harry Potter TV show that is greenlit and casting and filming next year. It is then important that these fanfiction spaces stay inclusive, stay safe, stay available, stay accessible to everybody.
And that, like, to add to the accessibility, you were the one who shared with us in one of our fanfic episodes that we covered that, was it AO3 that has an audio version?
You can do text to speech, which like kind of sucks, but like it's there, and it's a lot more than like other things have, and like you can play with it. There's things to be done. Like there are ways, but again, accessibility is something that we kind of harp on here that is missing from a lot of spaces. So always, praise accessibility.
So, yeah, I feel like those are kind of like the key. What was yours? I feel like I monopolized so much of the time. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I love to hear you speak, and I'm so sorry if I inserted myself into your lovely segment.
No, I'm glad you do, because otherwise this would have been like a 5-minute episode when we were out.
So Laura Marie, I went through, and not to get too into it, but I was looking at numbers. And I was looking at numbers, and you know what? Numbers are so important because numbers do not lie. And as I was looking at these numbers, and as I was looking to what they correlate with, I was like, you know what? I am going to go back and I'm going to revisit one of our author interviews because I have an itch. I have an itch in the back of my mind that I want to revisit this book. But first, I want to reacquaint myself with an author that I was not super familiar with before I dive back into this book that we read, that when we interviewed her with. So here's the thing. I think that our author interviews are some of the best interviews that we have. Obviously, we're amazing. But these interview episodes that we have are incredible in my personal opinion. Because not only are we fantastic and engaging and personable and talking to a stranger, but we're all friends. But usually we are discovering something really poignant about the book that we're reading because we're reading it like before there's a lot of online discourse about it, before we're getting opinions thrown at us, before we're like inundated with spoilers and really, honestly, it's just opinions. Just other people's opinions before you have time to like really sit and like formulate your own. It's all like flash, flash, flash. Okay. That's my little spiel here. All right. Anyway, I went back and I listened to our author interview with Sarah Wolf covering her book, Heavenbreaker. Now, why did I have the inkling, the itch to read Heavenbreaker? Oh, well, only, there's aliens in the ocean. There's aliens in the ocean. Guess what? There's aliens in the ocean. Spoiler here, but not really. There's aliens in the ocean.
I mean, that's a life spoiler, not...
Yeah. Well, in Heavenbreaker, the aliens are also in the ocean. So I was like, you know what? Like, let's do this. Let's do this. So I dove back into this sci-fi world of Heavenbreaker where we are jousting in gigantic, like, fucking Transformers. And it was fucking rad. And here's my other point to this. When we do our author interviews, we are a lot of the times very lucky, very blessed, very thankful, very grateful to have access to a print copy or an ebook of the book that we're covering. Not a lot of times are we able to get, this is going to accessibility, the audio codes for a book before we have the interview. Again, it happens sometimes, not all the times. I understand the difficulties of producing and doing an audiobook. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. The audiobook for Heavenbreaker is out. Okay. It's out. So I went and I listened to Heavenbreaker before when we interviewed Sarah Wolf. Jessica, you and I had read a physical copy of Heavenbreaker. So I did the audio. And let me tell you, what a different experience. I was able to pick up on, again, like little things in the plot that I was not like focused on before. And I do feel like that was because the narrator drew attention to it through tone and through like pacing and accents and all sorts of these things where I was like, wow, there's this whole other thing that I like kind of knew about that was like hovering over here is like solidified in my mind now because it was, it just activated a different part of my brain because it was being read to me instead of like me physically like reading the book. And it like solidified a piece of the story for me. So I think that was also, going to what you were saying, a little bit of joy for me. Because if we're going to have aliens in the ocean in real life, let's have them in our books and let's fight them. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and it's not aliens in the ocean, not so sci-fi anymore. Is that fiction? Yep. Is that real? Is that, we have these questions now. And so interesting that I had no idea even when you were like, I did an author interview and I had no idea where it was going. I didn't remember what we did in May. It all blurs, and it all blends, but in the best way, because we just are fortunate enough to at least be able to take the time to read a book a week, sometimes more. But to what you said about accessibility and the reader experience, the same thing happened with Long Live Evil, where there was a lot of opinions that had been formulated, but we had access to the audio, which changed the whole, the feedback that was happening and the confusion that was there did not exist for us because of our audio experience. So to hear that the cadence and the tone and the accents not only elevated your experience for Heavenbreaker, but had you focus on different things shows also an importance. Like, and again, not to say that even from a budget perspective, we know it's a whole separate cost entirely. And we're sure that that cost is driven up if you're an indie author too. So when you have traditional publishers not able to supply those audios or at least give an option, it's that is within its own interesting conversation.
Yeah. And two, again, I'm just going to say what I found just so interesting because I can't get it out of my head. So they're on, this is not a spoiler. This book is out. We've already covered it on the podcast. Just saying. But in this sci-fi book that I listened to through audio, it was very much solidified for me the religious aspect of the whole plot and the otherness of the aliens and how the main character is like, they're aliens to us, but we're aliens to them. And like everything is fucked. Like we all handled this pretty badly, you know? And the
I'm laughing not at you. I'm laughing at how this is real life. Like it's just is like this shit is happening now.
Yeah. So oops. Well, that went poorly. What are we going to do about it? We're all stuck in space. Let's hyper focus on the things we don't have. Wood, right? Amber, grass, flowers. These are the monikers of wealth. Like these are the things that we chase. The dead bodies of the poor are made into fertilizer for, like, it's very, what's the Chris Evans movie? Snowpiercer. It's very Snowpiercer with the recycling of bodies and food and all of these things. And of course in the vastness of space coupled with jousting. But it was also something too, Jess, that you're talking about, like real life is like kind of crazy. Like, you know, we're searching for the joy here. It is odd to find comfort, I guess, and joy for me personally in space because I hate space. I hate space. I hate space so much. I hate it so much. But this story has a very specific like plot line that includes the aliens and includes like what they are and like what kind of happened and like what is going on and how we, the people, harvest and use them even in like death. And we're still doing that. We're still doing that to these people, to these creatures, to lift ourselves like up and make ourselves feel important. And there was just like so much social commentary in there for me that I was just like kind of overwhelmed with it, while also like jousting in fucking Megatron, you know, like
I'm just like, with that discourse, how is this book not being spoken about more?
Well, I don't know. I do think that is a bias to science fiction, right? Like even on the podcast, like Jess, science fiction is not something that you reach for, right? Like
not me personally, but I know you do.
Personally.
Not that I'm putting that all on you to say like, we need to read all these sci-fi. That's not the intent of that comment either.
Oh no. And my point just being like, it is just like one of those genres that a lot of people just don't pick up. They don't gravitate to. Like, you know, we started off our podcast in 2020 by saying like fantasy is a very hard sell. Fae is a very hard sell. In its own unique and special way, sci-fi is also a very hard sell. You know, who wants to think?
Yeah, I mean, especially like the commentary that comes with sci-fi, because, you know, just like reading is inherently political, sci-fi is inherently political, as is fantasy. But whereas, I don't know, this is just making me think, whereas fantasy might or used to be a harder sell with literature, sci-fi feels like an easier sell from like an optical media perspective. It's easier. You can sell sci-fi for TV and movies and streaming a lot easier than fantasy, it feels. Whereas with books, it seems like the other way around. Think of every single Lucasfilm, Dune, all of sci-fi. But the only thing that I think of when it comes to fantasy is Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and Lord of the Rings.
You're saying the quiet part out loud, which is men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like science fiction. Men like science fiction a little bit more than fantasy and other genres, which is why those things tend to be more successful when they are put out for a general audience.
Right.
Case in point, every single fantasy show that has been canceled after 1 or 2 seasons for the past 10 fucking years.
Well, and then the dismissiveness that comes with the fantasy genre, not just with the fantasy genre, but the rise of female authors and romantasy, right?
Which has just kind of
exactly. You were so good.
Yeah,
which is kind of. I was going with that.
It's kind of, I don't want to say it's kind of like stolen the like street cred or whatever of like the hardcore fantasy people, but like inserting romantasy or romance into fantasy and having this romantasy title does then just make people think of women, right? Like it's women.
Yeah. And because we're in a patriarchal society, it is the internalized misogyny that comes with diminishing the authors and the content that they're creating.
Mm-hmm. So your examples of like Lucasfilm and like all of these things, while the counterparts are like George R.R. Martin, George just came out and said he doesn't have any fucking pages. He doesn't have any pages. The book's not going to be written. Nobody.
Here's the thing. He's so quick to run his mouth about saying, "Oh, that's not what I would have done." Well, then fucking do it. You have an opportunity to change, or like, I think we said it on one of our SJM episodes where we're like, oh my gosh, are we giving her ideas? Or is she brainstorming like in a marketing meeting where you're like, I'm going to take that idea, run with it, but I think I'm going to go in this direction. He had a chance. He had a chance. HBO, pull from the fanfic writers, because that's going to go better than this dude.
Yeah. It's all bad. It's all bad. So like our fantasy man has failed us. Shockingly. Huh. Wow. Our fantasy man, we still have Tolkien. Okay. We still got Tolkien. All right. That's fine. But circling back here, I love this conversation of like this rebranding, or do you think here's my question for you. Do you think this creation of romantasy is rebranding fantasy, or is it pushing together all of the books that women like and giving us our own section to leave everyone else alone? Like, fine, shut up. You can have this. Is it that? Or did we create this thing? Like, is this some, like, what?
I think, but here's the thing, I still, considering you are the fantasy veteran between the two, has romance not always been there?
It has, but it has never been like
the forefront.
Official. Yeah.
Because that's where I feel like when we first, when we first had our conversations between like ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, we would say like Throne of Glass was like plot with romance, whereas ACOTAR is romance with plot. It does kind of feel, not between us, but like external conversations, that romantasy is like, here, you want your fantasy, have your romance. But I don't like that also, because it also it pigeonholes women into thinking you just want romance, you just want this is the only thing that you're capable of enjoying, which I don't like either. It's like, It feels like by categorizing that, it's a shut up thing. Like, fine, here, like you said, which obviously we don't agree with. And it's really frustrating because you can like both too.
Yeah, both things can be, two things can be true at the same time. This is very interesting. This is a very interesting conversation. Kind of building off of accessibility and audio, I was able, again, to focus on the plot aspects a little bit more here. And I was able to focus on side characters, and I was able to really build the richness of the plot in a way that I was not able to in the print. And why could that be? I was thinking about this because, like, why could that possibly be? It can't just be that I'm better audio processing. That has to be it. I do think part of it, and here's where I'm circling back to author interviews that we do are awesome in general, is that I was a little nervous. Like, there's a little bit of a nerve factor when we're doing these author interviews, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself. So it is easy then to maybe not make all the points that you want to make, maybe not ask all the questions that you want to ask, maybe not explore every little aspect of the story that you really would want to, because you're a little nervous. There's a little hard stuff going on here, and that I think is one of the parts of us that make us ACOFAE very special, is that even though we have over 200 episodes, we've been doing this for so long, that we still have those feelings before we do things, which means that it is still fresh and exciting and something that we want to do and not something that we are forced to do. Again, I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. Which again, just kind of circles back to, it is easy to find joy doing the things that you love. And I'm thinking very specifically to like when you were forced to read a book in school. I was forced to read Dracula in school and in high school. And I remember just being like, I think I would really enjoy this in a non-academic setting where I can just sit and like really like absorb this without having to analyze and pick it apart. And then I was able to do that a little bit later, and it fucking slaps. Of course it does. It's a classic for a reason. So I do find that approaching all of these things in different points of your life, in different time periods of your life, allows you to have a lot of different perspectives. And doing episodes like this with you allows me to reflect on things and discover things that I was not even aware that I was discovering. Like my reaction to Aliens in the Ocean, leading me to Heavenbreaker, leading me to the audio, leading me to have all of these kind of thoughts and feelings just about what we're doing, where we're going, how we access things. And aliens are scary.
Do you think that reading Heavenbreaker through audio, you were able to focus on different things because it was audio, or because you had already read it? And you had already read it twice. So you were already familiar with the context, and not only, so you didn't have to focus on the things that you had to focus on. And then the for lack of a better term, like the preparation, I guess you can say, that comes with us approaching author interviews, that pressure was alleviated. Do you think that helped you approach this differently? Because it's only been like 6 months or 8 months.
Well, let me tell you something. For the first, I don't know, significant portion that I listened to this book when it started, I was like, did I choose the right book? I don't remember any of this. What the fuck is going on? What? And it wasn't until like she was in her suit and she started talking to Rax, I was like, oh, yes. But it wasn't like, but that first like little, I was like, wow, did I choose, is the second book out? Did I screw this up? Cause there's no way that this happened. What the fuck? So that just kind of goes back to, the retention that I have as well. I'm much better when I listen to things because I'm also busy. It's this whole
the
thing.
Focus is different, right?
The focus is different. So to answer your question, yes, I think once I got going and I remembered certain big plot points of what was going on, I was like, oh yeah, no, I got it. I remember this. But that first section where I didn't know what the fuck was going on, kind of was exhilarating because it was like,
it's like a new read all over again.
Yeah. And it was also like, I know I read this.
Yeah.
Like, I know I read this. Like and then I like pulled out my copy and I looked at the back. I was like, yeah, like I know that I read this. I just don't remember it starting like that. And I do feel like, and here's also part of it too, that in sci-fi books, it is easy to get very into the intricacies and the detail and the world building. If it's good, it's very easy. And when it's not excellent, it's easy to like go in and out and like not really pay attention. For example, I was on a road trip recently, and editor Sam and I listened to Artemis by Andy Weir. Not one of his best. Not one of his best. Not one of his best. And I was able to sleep through that. I could sleep and I could wake up and he could kind of tell me what was going on. And I was like, yeah, word. And then like, go. Not interested. And that was in an audio setting. It was just, and he's a great author. It didn't hold my attention.
That particular one, because you like Andy Weir.
I do. I like Andy Weir. Amazing. But they're making that into a movie.
No, I'm so excited.
Rocky's gonna
stop it. I'm excited. I'm so excited. You can have your shirt.
Amazing. To kind of give a counter example of that, on our way back on that same fucking long ass road trip, we started listening to Silo, and I could not stop listening to Silo. I was laser into Silo. And then my husband kept reading it after, and he is updating me on what happens every single day he comes home. It's the first thing he says. He's like, this, and this happened. And it's just wonderful. So, and he's continuing to listen to it through audio. So.
Oh, so did you finish it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No one's finished it.
Okay.
So all of this to say that it is, upon reflection, it is unsurprising to me that I did not remember the beginning of this very hefty sci-fi book, because the world, like sci-fi is like a spiral, right? Like it starts very small and then it expands into space, like quite literally. It always expands into space. You start very small in the station and then you always get bigger. And it is then easy to get bogged down in like, how does life support work? What's going on? How do the spacesuits work? The vacuum of space, hull breaches, like the words are different. The words are very specific. Everything is going on. And it's easy to either tune that out or get lost and bogged down in that. That was not my experience reading nor listening to Heavenbreaker. I was able to honestly wince every time she got hit in the jousting matches, which again, the difference between reading, listening, and seeing is very different and very visceral.
You're making me want to reread it, because I remember like how exciting it was when we had read it traditionally, but you are selling me on reading it through the audio experience.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. And what it has done for me now is to kind of make me wonder if I should go back and experience the audio versions of books that I have not done before, books from my childhood, kind of historical fiction books. I am interested if I am able to keep the same level of focus in those that I have here, just because I know that historical fiction can be very difficult for people and you can get very bogged down in those details. So I'd like to compare and contrast there and see, just because while those genres are very different, they are more similar than not.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, they have there's like, when you try to find the pipeline, and the continuity of it all. And it's an interesting experiment to have with yourself, because, in our summer 2021 episodes, we did that with the Serpent and Dove trilogy of if it was a different reading experience between you reading through audio and me reading traditionally. And then we swapped by the third book to see if there were different takeaways, and there weren't. We pretty much came to the same conclusions if you revisit those episodes. But it is it's interesting of how they might be revisited now, because audiobooks, especially ones from like our childhood, audiobooks didn't exist and the accessibility to them, I should say, didn't exist. That's what it is. Because I know when we talked about in our audio versus traditional reading, your grandma had access to a particular set of audiobooks, but that was because of the program that she used, that it was like more ADA facilitated. So that's where she had her accessibility. It wasn't like through apps and Audible and all of these different options. So that would be so fun going through like the books that we loved as kids.
I know. I really think it would be a joyous journey. As you were saying that, you made me think, because you are, of course, so eloquent and so smart, that Dune, the audio experience of Dune is very different than the reading experience of Dune. And that is another really fantastic example of you can get bogged down in those goddamn details if you read that book. Oh, my God.
I don't think I would have gotten through the book if it wasn't for the audio. Granted, I should have given myself more time. I will admit that. If you've listened to our Dune episodes, I'm like, I shouldn't have tried to rush this in a week or a week and a half because Laura told me to. Just because procrastination did not, told her otherwise. But I do really, really love that experience. And you've even shared with me that is you will put that on for comfort because of that experience. And I know people have their lots of different opinions when it comes to like the full cast with graphic audio, to each their own. So, but it really just comes down to, I guess, the user, the consumer. But we've had pretty good experiences.
Yeah, I would say it comes down to the consumer, because you can't catch me listening to that ACOTAR graphic audio. Nope, it's got sound effects. Nope. That being said, Hachette Audio fucking kills it when they do sound effects.
I knew you were gonna say, thank God you did it. 'Cause
you know, like, it's just one of those things. Like, it can go really good. It can go really bad. Specifically, the Dune audiobook is a fucking banger. The way that they do everything. Oh, it's good. I think, though, that I really like your choice, Jessica Marie.
I like your choice, too. It's so different than, like, especially how your mind worked to approach it.
Well, you know, as I said the other day, as I said in our past episode, like, sometimes I just can't get my shit together and I have to like kind of wing it. But I was like kind of thinking about this one and I was really like vibing with it and I had a really wonderful time. And even though Editor Sam posted a picture of the font that I use on my phone and allowed me to be fucking roasted by his Discord, there is joy.
You have to tell me this story later.
Even though that happened, if you want a picture of what the font on my phone looks like, let me know. We can provide that. It's hilarious.
It's also in your stories when you post shit in your.
It's also in my stories.
Instagram
it's very fun.
Stories.
So I think then it is important to find the joy. Again, we're finding joy. And even though I'm getting roasted from my font online, that's fine because I was able to really have the joy of having you as a co-host, doing this for so long, hearing your pick, which I was completely and utterly blown away by, and your reasons are fantastic, absolutely amazing. And then I was able to very selfishly enjoy a fantastic sci-fi book through audio about aliens in the ocean, which is more real life than I would like to. And I think the opportunity for reflection is something that is getting kind of left by the wayside, and reflection is one of the most important ways that we grow and learn.
Which is why we started this too. Like, we were always going to, like, that was always part of the foundation, was reflecting and exploring fandoms and things that we've read in the past and experienced. And I mean, there were a lot of foundational pieces to start, but it wouldn't have happened without you. So I can't say happy birthday to ACOFAE without saying happy birthday to you. And I'm always so thankful for you and appreciative. So go us.
Go us.
I'm so proud that you keep doing that so effortlessly now. I know you worked at it. You won't tell me, though.
I did work on it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It hurts my hands, but I can do it.
Maybe I could do it like, I was going to say, can we do it like on the screen? We got it. We're getting there.
We got it. I love it. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to everyone. Thank you for listening.
It's my birthday. With that being said, feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok for as long as it's not banned again. ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.